The chaos, where order meets chaos. The chaos, where order meets chaos.
Hey, welcome to DeChaos. My name is John Baeda, and I am here to speak about everything that came into my mind. Today, let's see. We often hear that AI will help us make better decisions, faster decisions, smarter decisions. And I actually believe that. AI has enormous potential, more than most organizations are ready to use properly. But what I've learned over the years is that data matters. And if we don't know how to deal with it, we don't become smarter. We get lost. In many projects I've seen, the problem was never the lack of data. There were dashboards, reports, KPIs, forecasts. What was missing was the willingness to face what the data was already saying. AI doesn't change that dynamic, it amplifies it. We like to think that decisions fail because information is incomplete. That if we just had one more model, one more prediction, one more tool, clarity would magically appear. But in reality, clarity is often already there. It's just uncomfortable. Because clarity forces choices, and choices force accountability. This is where AI becomes interesting. Not because it decides, not because it replaces judgment, but because it removes excuses. It shows patterns at scale. It connects dots consistently. It highlights trends we've been normalizing for years. AI doesn't create bias, it reveals it. It doesn't invent blind spots, it exposes them. In executive rooms and project environments alike, I've seen the same reaction again and again. People ask for insights, they ask for transparency, they ask for data-driven decisions, and then they hesitate. Not because the data is wrong, but because it challenges a narrative that felt comfortable. This is why AI often feels threatening. Not because it's intelligent, but because it is consistent. It doesn't get tired. It doesn't adapt the story to the room. It doesn't soften the message. And suddenly, what used to be intuition is now visible. What used to be experience is now measurable. In leadership, we tend to think decision-making starts at the moment of choice. Yes or no, go or no go, approve or reject. But that's the last step. Decision-making starts much earlier, with what we decide to look at, what we choose to measure, and what we quietly accept as noise. AI enters exactly there, not as a judge, not as an oracle, but as a mirror. And mirrors don't tell you what to do, they simply show you where you are. Today, I'm not going to talk about tools, or algorithms, or technical architectures. I want to talk about why AI-supported decisions make people uncomfortable, why organizations resist insights they asked for, and why the real value of AI is not in deciding for us, but in revealing what we already know and prefer not to confront. Because AI doesn't decide for you, it reveals what you'd rather not see. Let's go there. When AI enters a decision process in global organizations, something subtle but powerful happens. The conversation changes, not because the answer is different, but because the questions become harder to postpone. In large, distributed organizations, decision-making is rarely about a single choice. It's about alignment across countries, across cultures, across layers of leadership and delivery. And this is exactly where AI starts to create friction. One of the most persistent myths around AI is that it eliminates bias. It doesn't. In global organizations, bias is deeply embedded in the way success is measured, in the regions that get more attention, in the voices that are heard more often. AI doesn't remove those biases, it reflects them at scale. And when people say the AI is biased, what they often mean is this output doesn't align with how we've been operating. In project management environments, this becomes very visible. Projects are, by nature, delivery focused. They live under cost pressure, time pressure, and expectation pressure. Leadership often asks project teams to be data-driven, but also expects stability, predictability, and reassurance. AI doesn't negotiate between those expectations. It exposes the tension. In many global deployment projects, AI-supported insights highlight patterns that teams already feel, but rarely formalize. Chronic schedule optimism, recurring cost underestimation, late risk escalation. These are not technical failures, they are behavioral ones, and AI makes them visible. This is usually where resistance appears, not at the level of project teams. They often recognize the patterns immediately. Resistance tends to appear higher up, where decisions are framed, approved, and defended. Because accepting those insights means accepting that some decisions were never neutral, they were convenient. In leadership discussions, experience is often used as a shield. I've seen this before. This market is different. This project is an exception. AI doesn't challenge experience directly. It challenges the exception narrative, and that can feel uncomfortable. For project managers, this creates a difficult position. On one side, they are asked to rely on data. On the other, they are expected to align with leadership expectations. AI makes that tension explicit. It shows where delivery reality and strategic narrative diverge. Another effect of AI in global organizations is how it redistributes authority. Traditionally, authority comes from hierarchy, tenure, or proximity to decision makers. AI ignores all of that. It doesn't know who is in headquarters. It doesn't know who owns the budget. It doesn't know who has political capital. It just sees patterns across projects, regions, and time. This doesn't weaken leadership, but it does change the nature of it. Leadership becomes less about defending decisions and more about interpreting evidence. And that shift is not trivial. Many organizations invest heavily in AI and analytics, but stop short of changing how decisions are actually made. Dashboards are reviewed, insights are acknowledged, but actions remain the same. This is not failure of technology, it's a form of organizational self-protection. AI forces a choice. Either insights remain decorative or they become disruptive. And disruption doesn't mean chaos, it means accountability. In global organizations, where decisions cascade across multiple layers, AI makes something very clear. Once an insight is visible, not acting on it is no longer neutral. Delay becomes a decision. Reframing becomes a decision. Silence becomes a decision. It doesn't tell leaders or project managers what to do, but removes the illusion that decisions happen in a vacuum. It shows that leadership and project management are not separate worlds. They are connected by the same data, the same trade-offs, and the same responsibility. And once that connection is visible, the real question is no longer, what does the AI recommend? The question becomes, are we ready to face what our own data has been telling us all along? So if AI doesn't decide for us, what is its real role? The answer is simpler than it sounds. AI is decision support, not decision ownership. Yeah, like AI is extremely good at processing complexity, at seeing patterns across portfolios, regions, and time, at connecting signals that humans struggle to hold together. This is its strength. But strength doesn't equal judgment, and this is where many leaders get it wrong. The biggest mistake leaders make with AI is letting it decide, not because AI is incapable, but because leadership is not about prediction. Leadership is about choice. Trump. The future is not AI-led, as some experts, like Lloyd Skinner from Greyfly, say, the future is human-led, AI-empowered. In global organizations, this distinction matters a lot, because decisions don't happen in isolation. They ripple across teams, across markets, across people who will live with the consequences. AI can highlight options, it can quantify trade-offs, it can surface risks earlier than ever before, but it cannot own the impact of a decision. This is where sense-making becomes critical. Sense-making is the ability to interpret signals in context, to understand not just what the data says, but what it means now, in this situation. AI provides signal. Humans provide meaning. For project managers, this role is increasingly central. They sit at the intersection of strategy and delivery. They understand constraints on the ground and expectations at the top. I can tell them where projects tend to drift, where risks usually escalate too late, where forecasts are consistently optimistic, but it's the project manager who translates that into action. For leaders, the role is different but complementary. Leadership is about deciding which signals matter most, which trade-offs are acceptable, and which risks are worth taking. While I can support that judgment, it cannot replace it. This complementarity is powerful when organizations embrace it consciously. Project managers use AI to create clarity and early visibility. Leaders use that clarity to make deliberate, accountable choices. Problems start when AI is used to avoid ownership instead of strengthening it. There is a subtle difference between being data-driven and being data-dependent. Data-driven leadership uses AI to inform decisions. Data-dependent leadership uses AI to justify them. And that difference shows up very quickly in how organizations behave under pressure. AI does not remove uncertainty. What it does is reduce ambiguity. And once ambiguity is reduced, responsibility becomes harder to outsource. This is why AI adoption is ultimately a maturity test, not of technology, but of leadership culture. It asks a simple question. Now that you can see more clearly, what will you choose to do? It doesn't push the button, but it turns on the light, and once the light is on, every choice becomes visible. Well, that's where responsibility begins. And that's exactly where we need to go next. By now, one thing should be clear. AI is not the decision maker. It never was. What AI really does is change what we can see. It brings patterns to the surface. It removes ambiguity. It reduces the space where assumptions can hide. And once clarity exists, everything else becomes a choice. This is the part we don't talk about enough, because clarity doesn't simplify leadership. It makes it heavier. When the data is visible, when the trade-offs are explicit, when the risks are no longer abstract, responsibility can't be delegated. AI doesn't force action, but it removes excuses. It doesn't tell us what to do, but it makes inaction visible. And that changes the nature of leadership and project management alike. So the real question was never what AI can decide. The real question is, now that you can see more clearly, what are you choosing not to act on? And maybe an even harder question. What decisions are you still calling complex when, deep down, they are simply uncomfortable? AI changes how we see. Leadership decides what we do with it. This is where I'll leave you for now, not with answers, but with clarity. I'm João Baeta, and this was DeChaos. Thank you. See you next week. Don't forget to bring order to your chaos. One last thought. AI doesn't create order on its own. Order starts with a prompt. A vague prompt keeps the chaos vague. It produces answers that feel useful, but don't really challenge anything. A good prompt does the opposite. It forces you to be precise, to define what matters, to expose assumptions you didn't realize you were making. Prompt engineering is not about clever wording, it's about clarity of intent. Because when the prompt is weak, AI amplifies the confusion you already have. And when the prompt is clear, AI reflects the reality you were avoiding. This is why good prompts are uncomfortable. They remove ambiguity. They narrow the space for excuses. In that sense, prompt engineering is not a technical skill, it's a leadership skill. Because asking the right question is often the first real decision we make. And that's it. I don't want to take more of your time. I'm João Baeta, and this was DeChaos. Thank you. See you next week.
The chaos, where order meets chaos. 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 The